Welcome to Parshas Korach. It should be a zchus for my family and all of Klal Yisrael. In the city of Sanz, a man was appointed to serve as the head of the Jewish community despite the local opposition of many residents. It soon became clear that their concerns were justified. The new leader failed in his duties, especially managing the public funds with integrity. Rather than safeguarding the assets of the Kehillah, he treated them with carelessness and self-interest. One day, a wealthy visitor arrived in Sanz. He was descended from a family that had lived there, and after touring the town and reminiscing about his heritage, he made a generous donation to support the city's communal institutions. But instead of transferring the funds to the community treasury, the leader saw an opportunity and used the donation for his own personal needs. It wasn't long before word of the misdeed spread. The townspeople, outraged by the betrayal, organized a delegation and brought the matter before Rav Chaim of Sanz, their revered spiritual leader. The Rebbe listened carefully as the delegation described embezzlement. When they finished, Rav Chaim asked them not to stir up a public dispute. As painful as the situation was, the Rebbe feared that public shaming and infighting would fracture the delicate fabric of the community. But before the delegation left, the Rebbe shared a parting thought with a touch of irony. "I once heard," the Rebbe said, "that in Gan Eden there is a special throne reserved for those who take upon themselves the responsibility of communal leadership, who devote themselves to serving the needs of the Klal. Yet to this day," he continued, "that throne remains empty. Could it be that it's waiting especially for the leader of Sanz?" In this brief remark, the Rebbe said it all. A quiet rebuke of the current leader's failings and a deeper reflection on how rare it is to find someone who leads for the sake of the people, not for themselves. It says, Kol Machlokes shehi l'shem shamayim sofa hiskayim. Any dispute that is for the sake of heaven will endure. V'she'ena l'shem shamayim ein sofa hiskayim. But one that is not for the sake of heaven will not endure. The Ma'aseh Hashem, authored Rabbi Eliezer Ashkenazi, asks, what does it mean that a Machlokes l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, will endure? Isn't the goal of a dispute to eventually reach a resolution? He explains a deep truth. When a Machlokes is truly l'shem shamayim, both sides are arguing out of sincerity and mutual respect. Each position contributes something meaningful and lasting. Both views can exist and be upheld because the purpose is to seek truth, not to destroy. But a Machlokes shelo l'shem shamayim, like Korach's, has a different goal entirely. Korach says, based on the Midrash Rabbah, I am arguing with you to uproot and nullify everything that came through your hands. The intention is not to clarify, not to build, not to uplift, but to dismantle, to divide, and to destroy. That's why the Mishnah says, a Machlokes l'shem shamayim is sofa lahiskayim. Its end is endurance, because its purpose is to sustain and establish the world through constructive disagreement. Every genuine argument for the sake of heaven contributes to the world's spiritual structure. When Korach and his followers challenged the appointment of Aaron as Kohen Gadol, Moshe acted in the capacity of a judge, not just as a leader. The Gemara Mo'ikatan explains that Moshe and Hashem together formed a valid Beis Din. And from Moshe's summoning of Korach and Dasan and Aviram, the Gemara learns that a Shliach Beis Din, a court-appointed messenger, which Moshe also acted as, is used to summon a defendant to appear. Chazal derive from here and from elsewhere key halachos about the process of summoning someone to Beis Din. When a defendant is summoned, the court sets a specific date for the hearing. However, if the Beis Din convenes daily, then there's no need to set a specific date. It can just be summoned without a date. If the defendant fails to appear after the first summons, he may be placed in nidoi, in excommunication. That said, if the defendant is occupied with matters out of town, the court must offer alternative dates. The Urim V'Tumim and the Nesivos HaMishpat write that nowadays, since everyone is busy, it is standard practice to give a defendant 3 chances to appear before taking further steps. Another halacha learned from this is that the Shliach Beis Din must inform the defendant who is summoning them. The Ritva explains that this gives the defendant a chance to appease the plaintiff and possibly settle the matter without a formal court case. Of course, this is only a sampling of the many halachos involved, but it shows how even Moshe's words in this week's Parsha, Parshas Korach, teaches us practical laws of Beis Din procedure. Have a wonderful Shabbos.